Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Mary Fran Johnson, CEO of Mary Fran Johnson Media. Twice a month, we produce CIO Leadership Live with the generous support of my friends at CIO.com and the CIO Executive Council. We're streaming to you live right now on LinkedIn and on CIO's YouTube channel. And because we are live right now and you are watching, we welcome you to tap in with your own questions for my guest today, which will be watching for those questions and doing our best to pass them right along to our special guest today, who is Feroz Mirchia. He is the CIO of Glendale, Arizona, where Super Bowl 57 happens to be happening this Sunday at State Farm Stadium. Glendale is a mid-sized city with a population of about 250,000, located about 9 miles northwest of downtown Phoenix. It's already well known among football fans as the hometown of the Arizona Cardinals, but the city's also made its mark as a real veteran Super Bowl host city. This year's Super Bowl, this Sunday's Super Bowl, will be the third time that Glendale has played host, the other two times being in 2008 and 2015. Feroz took on the dual role of CIO and CSO for Glendale in the summer of 2020. He brought with him 20-plus years of broad expertise as a C-suite executive, an IT leader, and a tech entrepreneur across multiple industries, from software and cloud computing to financial services and insurance, government, higher ed, and healthcare. And beyond his day job as Glendale's CIO and CSO, he also serves as the CTO of a stealth mode startup in the IT space. Before his current multiple roles, Feroz served as the CTO of the California Insurance Guarantee Association, CIGA, and before that, he was an assistant vice president of IT at LPL Financial, right before the company took itself public. Thank you so much for being with me today, Feroz. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you for having me.
I am so impressed. You seem so calm with all you have going on around you these days.
I am fortunate to have a very good team supporting me.
Yes, yes. And I know we're going to be talking a lot about that team and all the things you've been accomplishing. Now, any big picture view of what the city's business and its role, in the role that technology plays today, pretty much has to start with that supersized topic of the Super Bowl. So let's go there first and tell me, how has this year's role for the IT operation in Glendale, being at the center of this mega sports event, how has the role that IT plays now grown and changed from what you've heard about those previous host years? It's been a bit of a different game for IT.
Yes, indeed. So from the role perspective, it is very different from past years. Partly because the role of technology in our lives has changed. The way we use technology in 2008 is dramatically different from the way we use it today. So that is one factor. Similarly, the fan and audience expectation of the kind of experience they are looking for in a mega event like this has changed considerably. From a city perspective, from our role as a innovation and technology team within the city of Glendale, in past years, it was behind the scene work that we did. This year, we did that behind the scene work, but we were much more front and center in terms of how to strategize, how to plan, how to execute, and provide timely upfront input. And why that's important is because use of technology is very different.
Yes.
And we wanted to make sure that we provide the value and the right input at the right time. So we led some of those planning activities, those sessions, as a leader, bringing other disciplines and other areas of the city and other partner agencies together to plan for it and then develop a comprehensive execution plan. I'll give you an example of how we approach that. Within the planning activity of Super Bowl, there are regional partners, there are national partners who are involved.
Hmm.
Um, we were part of a cybersecurity planning group,
Hmm.
and we this year we were the host. We invited about 128 or so participants to come and go through a tabletop exercise. So uh, from a city perspective, all our public safety, all our utility, transportation, everybody was at the table.
Wow.
Uh, we led the session with the help of DHS and CISA. NFL was part of it, FBI,
Hmm.
military, all the relevant parties who were supporting this mega event were part of that exercise. And we successfully did that. And we are part of that activity until we deliver this event successfully
Yeah.
and give our fans an experience to remember.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Well, and those are
That's
not, the fans are not the only visitors to Glendale that you're taking care of right now. You mentioned that you've got another whole crowd of people that are here for another event. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So as I said, this is a regional sort of effort. So entire region right now is hosting two mega events.
Hmm.
Super Bowl is one. Waste Management Classic, which is the major PGA event that happens. It's literally, from a date perspective, is coinciding with the Super Bowl. The final day of that event is on the 12th, started on the 9th. So if you think about it, you have in this entire region million plus fans coming in. So influx of that much of a fan base coming in. The expectations are high, and it's just it's a very different experience
Yes.
that you have to plan for, and you really have to exercise all your technical, managerial, leadership faculties to come up with a plan that will make sure that everything goes well, everything is executed in a timely fashion,
Hmm.
and all these fans, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter which game they are coming to attend and see and experience, or they are just experiencing the environment that they are in,
Yeah.
is flawless. And
Well,
that's kind of where.
and you had made the point when we spoke earlier that in our digitally interconnected environments, pretty much everywhere now, everything is connected. The traffic systems, the technologies, the edge computing, all the sensors. So you're set up to essentially handle this anyway for your own city, but this is just a much broader lens on it.
Right. And if there was ever a need to prove that the physical and digital world are literally coming together, the edge computing and its use and all that. Tabletop was, if you were there, you would see that every time we experienced a scenario that we wanted to play out and see how it would manifest itself and how we would address a situation like that. Either it started on the physical side, it ended up on the digital side, or started on the digital side, ended up on the physical side.
Yeah.
So it just tells you that the world is dramatically
Sure.
changing in terms of the use of technology and how we think and how we approach the implementation of technology, especially in the context of a city.
Yeah. Well,
Because
and I was wondering that too. When you speak of tabletop exercises, I'm used to hearing those talked about in terms of cybersecurity type scenarios, but these tabletop exercises had a much broader view about it's basically recovery scenarios. Something goes wrong, and here's how we respond to it.
right, and not everything may happen in terms of a cybersecurity issue.
Right. Right.
They may happen because somebody incorrectly parked the car and knocked off the hydrant. And all
Right.
these things are connected sensors. Now you have sensors going on. So,
Yeah.
so yes, you have an alert on your system saying that there's a fire hydrant that got damaged in
Yeah.
the process. It has implications. So, or traffic light, or
Yes.
street light,
Yep.
anything.
Well, and
So,
the smarter and more connected cities become, the more everything is essentially passing between the physical world and the digital world.
absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things you'd mentioned that your department did, you developed an app for the EMS workers, the emergency medical service professionals for the city. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So, what we did as part of our planning was pre-event planning. And the way pre-event planning was done in the past was that our fire safety officers, they would go visit the location, identify things of concern, identify what needs to be remediated. It was more of a paper-based process because they had their worksheet they would go through, they check everything and report it back. What we now have done as part of it's more of a future strategy, but we are using it here in the context of Super Bowl because it's such a huge event and it requires that kind of technology assistance. Now they have an app on their cell phone and they can literally go and locate those sites and do their pre-event planning, information gathering that they need to do. But they're doing it on an app. The data is directly going into the database. It's available instantaneously from planning purposes. You can, because it is leveraging GIS technology, now you have the location information very precise and accurate. So I collected the information, somebody else can use that information and get to the location they need to be in order to remediate if there was a situation.
And when I'd asked you when we spoke earlier, I asked you what was surprising to you about being part of the center of this hurricane of activity around the Super Bowl. And you said you were anticipating that there'd be a lot of complexity. And as a CIO, you've dealt with complexity for your whole career, but that there was a big surprise that the experience was so collaborative and positive.
Yes,
That
indeed.
sounds. And you're not just saying that. Everybody got along.
Everybody, I don't want to jinx it, but
That's true. That's true. We have to go till Sunday.
yeah, exactly. But when you are dealing with professionals who are at the top of their game and they know what they need to bring to the table to make things successful, it's a very exciting experience, and I was pleasantly surprised how easy and effortless it was in terms of having those conversation, interaction, and everybody coming to the table with the idea that they would do their best to make this thing successful.
Yeah.
Now there are elements of it that are highly planned, choreographed, and they look simple, but tremendous amount of complexity is hidden behind these experts who have done this work over and over. So if you look at NFL, if you look at other media partners, they do it every year. So they have a playbook that has been tested over and over.
Yeah.
And it makes things easier.
Yeah.
There are other technical complexities that we have to account for, but still, it's a huge help when you're not starting from scratch and you have partners who come to the table with their expertise and their recommendation that are not pie in the sky, but actual field tested expertise that can be deployed easily. So that was kind of surprising.
Yes. Well, now, last year, the Super Bowl was in LA. So you were essentially, Glendale, Arizona was going up against some pretty stiff big city competition in terms of handling this. Did that make you feel more anxious about dealing with it?
Yes. My
yes, to be honest. Yeah.
So I have a sort of a partner in crime, Daniel. He's part of our economic development, and he and I, we collaborate when we talk to various technology companies and industry bodies to talk about technology and the footprint of technology overall in the city of Glendale and how we position ourselves as a forward-looking city embracing technology. So I said, we have a big challenge. This was early in early last year. I said, we have to out Hollywood in terms of so we have to think about different things, and he is in the process of making an effort, and we have some events that are on the sidelines of Super Bowl around esports because our next generation is more into it, and it is an area that is growing tremendously.
Yes.
So we're doing some work in that area. There's a conference and event taking place.
Okay. Well, so I guess...
Yeah, that's our way of distinguishing ourselves from...
Yeah. Well, and I guess by next Monday, we'll know if you pulled it off, if you out Hollywooded Hollywood. So tell me, let's talk next about the size and the scope of your technology team today and how you have structured it, the kind of things that you have changed since you got there. We were still pretty deep in the pandemic when you arrived in 2020. And so it's almost 3 years now. What have you changed to make sure that the technology operation is delivering the value it needs to?
Yes. So just to kind of give you the perspective on the size of my team.
Yes.
So if I look at my FTEs and my consulting partners who kind of form the core team, we're about, I would say, about approximately 100, depending on what kind of project we are undertaking, and the team may grow or shrink based on what's going on. So that's the general size of the team. When I came to Glendale, we were still in the middle of pandemic. So the biggest realization that everybody had, whether you are a technologist or a business leader, that our world has changed. We're no longer bound by location in order to conduct our business.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we're able to conduct our business as effectively, as efficiently as possible, no matter where we are located. So that was the first thing, to make sure that we were able to deliver on that expectation and need, that was the need of the hour at the time. And that work was already underway when I joined, and we just kind of took it forward. And how it manifests itself going forward, I'll give you a simple example. Moving away from desktop, unless it is needed for somebody for a special use, we would provision it, but entire workforce is going to be on a laptop. So any moment in time, if the need arises for somebody to be remote and not in the office, now they are ready to do that. All the complementary tools and technology that needs to be available to them would be available.
Right.
How do we do that in its physical manifestation? So if I'm a new hire, I come in, I get my laptop provision, and I get a work from home kit. It's already packaged. It's literally a box that we hand you. So now you're ready. Wherever you are, your ability to do your job is going to be ready to go. You don't have to put in an additional request or anything. So that's one thing. I asked my team, the name of my department is Innovation and Technology. And within that department, there are basically 3 core divisions: application development, IT operation, and telecom. So I asked my team, I said, how did we come up with this innovation and technology?
Because that wasn't your rebranding of IT. No. They were already calling themselves that. Well, that was a fair question then. You showed up and you're like, okay, you're called Innovation and Technology. Why?
Yeah, exactly. So I asked them, what is our point of view? How do we see innovation? Because oftentimes it gets confused with invention. and we're
Yes.
not inventing the wheel here. So, and then I thought about it and I said, okay, the answer I received from the team was that, this was several years ago. People who were involved in the
Hmm.
decision making, some of them were not there, so we don't know what prompted them to adopt this name.
Yeah.
So I said, we
It's a
now
cool
that we
name though.
know
We'll
that,
keep it. It's cool. We'll keep
yes,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I like the name. I don't have an issue, but
Hmm.
we should have that
That's
signifies
great.
our brand.
Hmm.
What is innovation? And this is where I think culture matters. This is where I
Mm.
lucked out when I met during my interview process with our city manager, Kevin Phelps, and recognizing that his commitment and support to use of technology to make this city a truly a modern, forward-looking city,
Mm-hmm.
it was there. And how these things kind of coincided, me asking that question and him starting this sort of an initiative last year, which was basically, he said, we meet every week, the entire executive leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we'll pick a topic, and every department leader would come in and speak to that. So everybody
Mm-hmm.
selected a topic to speak about, and I selected the topic of innovation. So
Mm-hmm.
I basically talked about innovation first to the leadership team, and I had shared this idea of what I was going to speak about with my team, and I did the same presentation. So the idea, and it was a deliberate exercise, the idea was to communicate the same message to the leadership and
Yes.
all my peers in different departments
Mm-hmm.
and to my team. So we are on the same page in terms of how we see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically a simple thing. It was, how do we come up with creative and innovative ways of solving the problems of our city that truly makes a difference, and then we can stand up and say we are a smart city.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not based on how much tech we have deployed throughout the city. It's
Right.
based on the use of it and the value it delivers to our
Mm-hmm.
citizens. And that's basically this how it came about. And I think that was the foundational piece of how I wanted to reorient my team
Mm-hmm.
and get them to think differently, get them to think as a leader, and come to the table with recommendation as opposed to, okay, what do you need?
Right.
What can I get for you?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's not, it's an interesting shift in perspective for an IT organization, because IT organizations are used to solving problems. I mean, they do that every single day, and they tend to be practical. Probably a lot of them are just annoying user generated problems. My husband at our house calls them SUS, the stupid user errors. Not that CIOs would ever use that word, but so they're used to, IT people are used to solving problems, but this was a different way to look at it because it had a growth mindset to it. Was that idea
yes,
that innovation, problem solving should have an innovation component to it, I think. And is
absolutely.
that what led you to do? I know that in the summer of 21, you'd been there a year at that point.
Yes.
You had the first of Glendale's annual technology summits. And that
Yeah.
has led to some pretty successful things. So talk about that, how that got underway, and what you do at your summits.
Exactly. So um, my idea of summit was slightly different from it just organizing an event, inviting everybody to come in and then participate in some fashion.
Yeah.
It had two objectives. One was to make it clear to my team and to my stakeholders, all my peers in different departments of the city. We have about 28 different departments. So from public safety to utility to transportation and all the traditional stuff
Mm-hmm.
that a city offers. My goal was to communicate to my fellow leaders that IT does not happen in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's driven by a business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted them to do was come together when we were allowed to meet in person. So this was the first opportunity for us to get together and sit together.
Mm-hmm.
And the cross pollination of ideas can deliver some interesting insights.
Yes.
So I wanted them to come in and co-create the vision for our future.
Mm-hmm.
The second objective was that I want innovation and technology to take the center stage and present themselves in a new light, that they present themselves as leaders, people who are driving that change, that forward thinking in the
Mm-hmm.
organization. So how do you achieve that? Because if you look at a technologist, they're not people who would get on the stage and talk
They
about
did.
it.
They did not go
like
into
to do
marketing and sales for a reason. They went into technology
exactly.
because they like technology. They don't. They don't anticipate that they're going to be, well, thrown in front of a room full of other big business executives. So, how did you prepare them to do that? Because they did it well, from what you've told me.
Yes, they
Yeah,
absolutely did
they
a
rose to
fantastic.
the occasion.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I partnered with our HR and I said, I need my staff to be trained in facilitation skills.
Great.
So we
Mm-hmm.
invited them and we followed this kind of 70-20-10 model. It's an established
Mm-hmm.
practice in the industry when you teach people new skills. And the idea behind that is that the 10% of the learning happens in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
20% happens in kind of mentoring situation, and then 70% of your learning actually happens by doing things.
Yes.
So what we did was leading up to the event, we did a training workshop.
Mm-hmm.
First day was basically just understanding the principles of facilitation. Second day was role playing and mentoring and pointing out how to conduct.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulk of it was the main event, where
Ah.
literally we had about 100 participants that day and
Mm-hmm.
10 to each table. And I had a scribe and a facilitator from IT and few others from few other departments who wanted to participate. Um, they led those discussions. They captured the insight and input. The most exciting part was that you have a representative from fire department and you have a representative from finance sitting at the table having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That is immensely powerful if you can harness the power of that knowledge and insight that is coming out of those discussions. And that's what we did.
Well, and that's
And
the
it
sort of
was,
thing that drives genuine cultural change because it
yes,
changes the professional at work networks that people
yes,
have where they can just,
yes.
well, talk to each other like human beings. You know,
Yes.
amazing how well that works. So that one you said one of the biggest benefits was that you co-created a future vision.
Mhm.
What is that future vision? Do you have a catchy phrase for it, or how would you describe the future vision for the innovation and technology in
So,
Glendale?
so, like many other cities, we want to be considered and live up to that aspiration of being a smart city,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we talk about smart city,
Okay.
again, it's not about how much tech is deployed in the city.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even a question because it's everywhere and we use all these edge computing and sensors and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
The important piece here is how does that technology manifest itself and how does this technology um, benefit the citizens? That's what is important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we kind of all agreed to, came up with, that the
Yes.
city has to be smart. And by that, it means livability, enhance the livability.
Okay.
So when you're talking about communication, mobility and transportation, public safety, all those things are at the table now.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you deliver those services in a manner that whether you are experiencing it physically or digitally, the experience is something that one would remember and say, yes, this is the place to live and conduct business. That's kind of how we came together.
Okay. Well, and related to all of this collaboration and talking about taking innovative approaches to solve problems, I want you to talk about the Arizona Tax Central, powered by Glendale, which is a SaaS solution, software as a service, that you and your team developed to solve a problem not just for Glendale, but for all the other cities in Arizona. I think that's an amazing story, and I want you to talk about it a little bit more, because this is a real thing. This, you can go to the website and see this. It's been adopted by more than a dozen cities in Arizona, maybe more now. Tell us about that. What was the genesis of that?
So 2017, state of Arizona changed the way cities collected sales tax. And they went to a centralized model from a individual city collecting sales tax generated within the city. The centralized model was a good idea, but it had significant growing pains in terms of state not having the right technology to support the initiative. Out of that change, what happened was what was meant to be a good intentioned effort. Cities were still suffering. They were not getting the right amount of data. Where they thought that they would have to use less resources, they were using equal amount of resources as before, or maybe more in some cases. And what followed was Auditor General of State of Arizona audited Department of Revenue, and they found that data sharing and system deficiencies contributed to this kind of pain. So our sales tax department within our finance was trying to solve this problem, and we were working with them to solve that problem. We initiated a project to develop a solution. And so we were developing a custom solution. And the reason for doing that was we looked at the marketplace to see if there was something commercially available that we could utilize. And there was nothing that was commercially available without having to customize it. So if the amount of customization was needed was so much that we thought that it would be a better idea to just develop it from scratch to meet the exact needs and then solve this problem for them. So as we progressed and developed the solution and we implemented in-house, it was very successful, very effective. Literally a task that would take 2 hours was now being done in about 5 minutes. So think about an ROI from that perspective. Think about throughput from that perspective. And if you read some news reports from that time where citizens, business owners were having problem in terms of getting right information and being able to resolve those tax issues that they were having, this was really exceptional result. That now we can respond to their
the ability to collect sales tax is no small thing for cities of all sizes. I think you told me that Glendale's general fund revenue, more than half of it has to come from sales tax.
Absolutely.
So the well-intentioned state approach to it essentially garbled it all up, and it was, isn't it? You must have looked at it and said, well, of course, at heart, this is a data problem, because so many things come down to that. So you were intending to develop a solution so that the businesses in Glendale could very easily figure out what they owed and pay their tax.
And when our tax officers are looking at compliance from a sales tax perspective, they have information available to them quickly, so they can respond, and they don't have to invest a lot of time to resolve those issues, and these issues then don't linger. So if I'm a business owner, then my ability to do business becomes that much more simpler and easier if I'm conducting business in Glendale. So that was the overarching theme. Once the project was developed and delivered, we were having internal discussion with my team, and I said, let's convert this into a product. Now, imagine.
There you go. Product thinking.
Yeah, this is a public sector IT. they're not
Yeah.
Silicon Valley startup.
They don't do that kind of thing. Yeah, they must have been like, Pharaohs, what are you talking about? Look around you. We're a city in Arizona. We're not Intel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, they probably thought that for a second.
Yeah.
I took a wrong exit. I should have been at the Intel office or somewhere else. But I'll tell you, majority of my success here in Glendale is due to my team. They are brave and they are true professionals in a sense that they don't shy away from challenge.
Yeah.
So when I presented this idea, there was some apprehension, but at least I didn't see it. And they said, yes, let's do it. How do we go about doing it? I said, now we're talking, let's put a plan together. And instead of finishing a project, this becomes a product and we'll have a roadmap and all that. So next week, it's going to be our 1-year anniversary of this product. So first thing was that now this was the true litmus test. So me going up to city manager's office to now have a conversation with our sort of kind of CEO and say, is it okay for us to do this?
Yeah.
And
do you mind if we launch this and make money for the city? I don't imagine they had a lot of pushback on that.
No, they did not.
Yeah.
But the important thing for me was that level of trust to say, yes, we trust you and your team that you will be able to pull this off. There was no anxiety or apprehension. I honestly anticipated that there would be some, let's do a study or think about it. No, there was.
Let's have a task force. Cities usually love.
They said, yes, move forward. How can we help?
Wonderful.
My boss, assistant city manager, they interact with Department of Revenue, said, yes, we're going to have a conversation with them, go talk to them. So we get them on board also because they are party to this thing. And we met with them. We gathered their requirement to make sure that we address all their concerns.
Yeah.
From a security perspective, from access control perspective, from the overall design of our solution perspective, so that they are in agreement in terms of what we are delivering, and there's no concern or apprehension of any kind. And we achieved all that.
Yeah.
And we set a goal to launch this at Arizona Government Finance Officer Conference. It's an annual event that happens in early part of the year, every year. And we decided to launch it there because that was the target community. I set the goal for my team. I said, now we've developed the product. You're going there. You're the sales team. I want you to gather leads and I want you to close at least 5 deals.
Good
I didn't
for
go.
you.
My team went.
Yeah.
My deputy, my app dev team, they were on the ground. They were presenting their body of work to other cities. And we got about 18 or 19 inquiries. That translates into about 20% of total number of cities and population.
Isn't that
and
something?
We are. So that happened. Now, they can't just buy this product. They have to go and get their council approval. But I can tell you right now, we have about 20% of that market share right now using our product.
And this is but since it's a software as a service, you're essentially, they have to get permission to sign on and to pay their subscription fee and to collect sales tax that they haven't been able to collect. So
what happens is that previously they were getting a data, but they were getting a thin slice of data in a sense that 16%, 17% of sales tax related data. What that meant was that if they have to really investigate and say, okay, did I get my fair share of revenue from the state or not? You have to do a lot more legwork to do that. Literally go to Department of Revenue, use their system there. So there's a physical, logistical activity that needs to take place.
There's a lot of roadblocks, in other words, in the way.
Yes. Now, at your desk, point and click, you have 100% of your data available to you. You can cross-check analyze, and then focus your attention on where it needs to be focused. So you get your revenue much faster, you get the right amount, and you are delivering value to the citizens and reducing workload on your staff,
Yes.
unnecessary work.
The team must be so proud of what they've accomplished here because, you know, in fact, the city manager of Glendale must be congratulating himself that he hired you back in 2020 because I'm sure this wasn't part of their original plan. You know, Feroz, come and, you know, launch the first SaaS application solving a tax problem in the state of Arizona. That's just, it's so unusual.
It is. And as I said, my initial conversation, that is exactly what I was looking for.
Yes.
What is the level of commitment in terms of technology from the city leadership? And during the interview, they said, yes, we are committed to, and you should absolutely come and do the innovative work. But this was the physical manifestation of that commitment.
This was them. This was them walking the walk along with the talk. Yeah, that's great. So, Are there common problems across when you meet with and talk with CIO peers or your CIOs in your past in other government roles? The common problem that everyone is tackling today, is it to do with technology? Is it around data? Is it citizen privacy? What are the big issues for city CIOs?
Some of them are similar to what you would find in large organizations. Some are unique to us. So you'll see silos in larger organization also, and then some of them occur because of their sheer size. Staying with the historical operating model. Same is true with city, but where it becomes, and this is again my perspective based on this lived experience, is where it becomes more challenging that these silos are tied to a lot of legacy technology.
Yes.
The motivation to change is not there, and it's not there because there is a constant struggle that we need to be safe. We need to just follow the tried and true and not try and look at new things because they may create unnecessary risk.
I know. If it's not broke, why are we fixing it? Yeah.
Exactly. So that becomes a huge challenge, and why it's important right now for us to think about it. So if you ask me what is my strategy to overall how I execute my plan or how do I run my shop, it has to be based on sort of adaptive strategy. And by that, what I mean is things around us are changing so fast that we have to be nimble. And it's not lip service. We have to be nimble. We have to look at ground realities and adjust our strategy accordingly.
Yes.
Pandemic was one example. Pandemic stopped, and it created cascading effect on the supply chain side of things.
Of course.
So that was a problem. And then immediately following that, you have a geopolitical situation with a war. Now you have another issue. And why it manifests in our environment? Because public sector was a huge target when we were talking about cyber warfare.
That's right. That's right. It's critical infrastructure all over the place. Yeah.
So now if you have a legacy technology, you are more at risk. If you are keeping current landscape of threats and stuff like that, then you are a little bit more prepared. So how do you balance that? How do you move forward and protect legacy and introduce new technology?
Yeah.
So what that means is that amount of change and the pace of change is going to be really faster than what you would see elsewhere. And then public sector is at a different clock speed than a private sector organization.
Of course,
So
of course.
trying
Although
to
that
recognize
doesn't seem to have slowed you and your team down significantly. It seems like the sort of hurdles that are part of a government organization, you've either dug your way underneath them or found a way around them. Of course, with the cooperation of the executive team throughout the city.
So this is where the leadership makes a difference. You
Yes.
really have to lead. You really have to stand up and be counted. And then in order to do that, you have to establish that trust within your team that they are with you. You have to engage with your stakeholders. So the summit was that idea that let's come together, let's have that conversation now. Let's look at what's driving your business and how you want to address your business challenges. And I'm here as your partner, and I can provide valuable input from my vantage point that will contribute to your success. That co-creation piece, it needs to happen. So now, if you think about it, it's less about technology. I'm not talking about new AI. I'm talking about what is your business problem.
Right.
And having my team keep that in mind when they are having the conversation. Me presenting this as a role model to my team that this is what you do, this is why you engage, this is why you participate. That makes a huge difference.
This is solving a business problem with technology, innovative or otherwise. It may just be technology that really works well. I want to pivot over and talk a little bit about the priorities that you have. I was going to ask about technology priorities, but I think they're business priorities, really, from what you've said. For this year and beyond, what are the one or two of the biggest things on the horizon for you and your team?
There are several things that are sort of kind of moving in parallel. So the first and foremost is the smart city, and the smart city is sort of kind of evolving a long-term initiative or program that we need to continue an effort and work. By that, what I mean is, when I say smart city, I'm looking at it from a healthcare perspective. I'm looking at it from a public safety, transportation, communication, economic, and educational. And we have all those things in our environment. So how do we harness the power of technology to deliver all those in a meaningful way? So that would be one. Right after Super Bowl, we are working on an initiative where we are going to look at 5G private LTE network, test out different use cases in terms of the use of it.
Yes.
From smart lights, we do have smart lights in certain areas, but we're going to see when you scale it up, what are the benefits? Having broadband connectivity, because my app is of no value if I'm not connected. Right?
Yeah.
So this is an area when I talked about leadership. So fiber resides as an area of responsibility in a different department within the city. But I chair the fiber committee because we are able to bring it all together.
Yeah.
And then we're looking to basically have a citywide broadband availability with open access. So when you're talking about digital equity, this becomes an important thing. Now, if you take it from the healthcare perspective, you absolutely need this.
Because of
when
telemedicine.
You're talking about telemedicine, this is important.
Yeah.
And people sometimes confuse that I have my cellular connection and that is good enough. I can get on the internet. But for some of these in-home devices, you need sustained broadband connection.
Yes.
And that is what we are talking about. And then having that available or having broadband connectivity not just in the classroom, but curb to the classroom. So the student that is out walking home, at home, in school, they have that connectivity. So the education experience becomes enhanced, and it's not bound by geography or physical location.
Right, which is
And you can
what
deliver
helps.
that any.
Which is what helps approach the whole digital divide problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things. Public safety is a ongoing endeavor. There are several things we're doing in that area. We talked about some of the pre-planning app that we're looking at, the other initiatives that are underway in that area.
What's interesting too, because it all seems to center around connectivity and then communication of everything that's going on. It's not necessarily about modernizing the tech infrastructure, which honestly, beyond tech people, most business people don't even care about those details. It's more about what is this delivering to the business.
Exactly. Simple day-to-day things that we do rely on that connectivity and technology. So your transportation system, we call them intelligent transportation system. It's all connected, and it's run by technology, or water utility for that matter. We're looking at advanced metering infrastructure. And that means that not having to deploy an individual go out and do the meter reading or all that kind of stuff. Now they'll do other stuff which requires physical presence, but many things can be done remotely through connectivity.
Yeah.
So when we deploy that, we want to have a 5G private LTE type of network that would allow us to connect all those things and bring that information in. And the information that we're talking about now is your data. So now you can truly, in a very meaningful way, harness the power of data, and then do it in a real time, do it in at the right time. All those things are part of what we're doing.
Well, and this must have also had a big impact on your enterprise data strategy.
Yes.
What have you accomplished on that since you joined in, I guess, late 2020?
Right. So we, and for lack of imagination, we call it a modern data platform. We have to come up with some more.
Sometimes you have to call, you have to call a spade a spade. It's, it's a data platform. Let's just call it that. Any other name you came up with probably would have had everybody rolling their eyes anyway. So that's okay.
Exactly. So we had some legacy traditional warehouse that we were using. Now, what we're planning to do is move to this modern platform that leverages cloud, that allows us to do operational BI and more predictive BI type of work. So we're building that out. We spent last year looking at the architecture, looking at the data sources. How do we gather information from various different parts of the city? What is available to identify the initial use cases?
Yeah.
And then build a platform that is conducive to that type of a need and a demand. So we're in the middle of rolling that out now.
Yeah.
We've got several use cases that we are deploying.
Well, and in terms of being the Chief Product Officer with your Arizona Tech Central application, are there any plans to roll that out into its own department or create a small company around it? Is that it's unusual? It's unusual for a city to have this, right? So what sort of anything you can share with us about sort of the future of that product? You must get a lot of inquiries from other city CIOs wanting to know, how did you do that again?
So as far as creating a company, there's no plan.
Okay.
The thought did come to mind to say, now that we have developed a product, maybe we go find a buyer, and that becomes our exit strategy. So we launched the product, and we did a successful exit. So that's not in the cards as such. Now, as far as how do we support that, yes, that is on our planning roadmap.
Yes.
Right now, we're doing this support with the existing resources. Again, this
Okay.
is a bootstrapped effort, but as our subscription grows,
Mm-hmm.
we will form a dedicated team
Yeah.
to support this,
Mm-hmm.
primarily from a customer support perspective, technical support
Right.
perspective.
Right.
Especially when you think about it. So one of the initiatives that we're starting um, post Super Bowl is getting our SOC certification
Mm.
for this product. So now, if I go and buy a SaaS solution, I would ask for SOC 2 certification
Mm-hmm.
from the vendors. And, is your
Sure.
product
Yeah.
reliable, safe, and secure, and all that? So if I am selling a product, it's the right thing to do to have that available so that
Mm-hmm.
when somebody's buying it, they buy with full trust and confidence.
Of
So we're
course.
going to embark on that. We're going to establish that. And then as uh, our subscription grows, then we're going to have a
Yeah.
dedicated team to
Yeah.
support that because
'Cause
it makes sense.
yeah, well, and this isn't some social media TikTok thing you have launched here. This is actually
Yes,
this is collecting tax revenue. So it's pretty
exactly.
serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's it was interesting when I was looking. I know last August you wrote a piece for the Forbes Technology Council where you wrote about why the public sector needs to embrace innovation and a growth mindset. I like the way that you always connect the two of those together. That innovation, as you said, it's not just about inventing something new. It's about
Yeah.
taking a growth mindset and applying it to solving problems this way. Another thing you've talked about that I like is you don't always call it smart city, but smarter cities. And I know when you first joined Glendale, you actually had to kill a SmartGov, I think it was called SmartGov, the project, and replace it.
Yes. So we are restarting that project, and the situation was unfortunate in a sense that that project was a casualty of pandemic. The partner we were working with, they got severely impacted. So
Yeah.
their ability to deliver the solution in time became an issue. So sometimes you have to make those hard choices and decisions.
Sure.
And we needed to make that decision, and we didn't make it lightly. We did the full assessment. My PMO team did a full analysis, and we went to the leadership and presented and said, we are behind, and here are the reasons why we are behind, and this is what the path forward looks like. So
Well,
it's one thing to communicate just the bad news and then
yeah.
blame it on somebody. It's another to take an analytical view and learn from what went wrong and then apply that to your future
Yes.
planning and your strategy.
Yes.
And then we kind of did the
Year-
whole thing to
Years
restart
ago, CIO Magazine had a cover story that we called the F word, and it was about failure. And
Yes.
we got a selection of very brave CIOs to talk about something that was a failure and what grew out of it and what they learned from it. And when you think about the learning that happens along a leadership pathway, as we're wrapping up here today, and we mentioned all the kind of the unexpected good and bad things that came from the pandemic life everyone's been living for the last few years. Tell me what you have learned about your own leadership style from these past 3 years. There's been a lot of innovation. There's been a lot of big things you've had to deal with. When you think about advice to future CIOs, what have you learned that you would like to pass on?
So I think the biggest thing that I learned was that innovation is messy. Often when we talk about innovation, it is that glamorized image of
Eureka.
yes,
Yeah.
the unicorn, all that. But leading up to that eureka moment, there's a lot of messy stuff that needs to happen. So
Yes.
as a leader, you need to have tolerance for failure. You need to have tolerance for failure, but we're not incompetence, right? So, and then by that same token, then you need to provide room for people to experiment and look at different ideas and test them out.
Yes.
But again, if you want to avoid incompetence, then you need to put a discipline around it, right? So my example that the project didn't go well, fine. We took a disciplined approach to say we need to stop here, and here's the reason why we need to stop, and here's the path forward. But nowhere in that exercise you want to create this psychological pressure for people who are involved in the project that, oh my God, my job is at risk, or I'm going to get a bad review or something like that. No, that's not productive.
No.
What is productive is that you guide them how to be successful the next time, or you learn yourself from it and pivot and change your approach. And then that means individual accountability. So it's not always me telling that my staff should do things differently. It's also me holding myself accountable to do things differently.
Well, I think of a very kind of a golden example of that is when you were ready to launch the the Tax Central application. You didn't go to the financial officers meeting to get sales lead. You handed that over to the team. So, and they did a great job. So,
because it was their hard work, and who else to put in front of a prospective client and the people who built that thing to really talk about it in a passionate manner, to say, this is what we built and we stand behind it.
Yes.
And they did that.
Well,
they did a fantastic job.
Well, it has been so great talking to you today, Feroz. I really appreciate it. I know you have a million things moving in your environment with the Super Bowl looming on Sunday. I'm sure from what I've heard today, it sounds like everything, even if it doesn't go well, you'll know exactly what to do about it because everybody is very well prepared. So thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us today. It was wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. If you joined us late today, you can watch the full episode later right here on LinkedIn, but also on CIO.com and on CIO's YouTube channel. CIO Leadership Live is also available as an audio podcast wherever you find your podcasts. And I hope that you enjoyed listening in on this conversation with CIO Feroz Murchia of Glendale, Arizona, and that you'll plan to tune in and join me next time on Leadership Live on Wednesday, February 22nd, when I'll be joined by Bryson Kohler, who is the Chief Product Data Analytics and Technology Officer at Equifax. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and do take a moment to subscribe to CIO's YouTube channel, where you'll find all of our previous more than 100 now episodes of CIO Leadership Live. I keep encouraging everyone to binge their way through from the very beginning, so you need to get started on that soon. Stay well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you here again next time.